our middle school's praises since we've met him. He's been so impressed with the work of our learners. So he will help us with that prairie burn whenever that happens, if we can get it in the spring. Scott mentioned 6th grade camp next week. Hopefully most of the snow's gone by then. It's going to be chilly, but I hope everybody gets up there, whether you can come during the day, come in the evening. It's a great time and something we hope everybody can experience. The teachers and learners love it to see all the guests come, and we'll continue supporting them. So thank you.
Thanks, John. At the high school, we had a couple of students go with Mrs. Hollipa to the state FBLA convention, and Autumn Keene took second place in database application management, and she also qualified for national competition this summer. So they're looking at possibly attending that and going a little further. The list of winners was just released for the UWWC Festival of Arts conference. There were 30 pieces.
I forgot to mention that because it was at the top of my list. Bob can talk about, we had 2 entries that placed from the middle school. To Leah Murillo, I was an 8th grader and got 4th in the drawing category, and Josh Robeson is a 7th grader who got 3rd in the drawing category.
It's an art competition that is regional?
It's a juried art competition, regional. There were 30 schools that from 5 counties in the region that sent. We sent 30 pieces of art. 2 middle school individuals took place, and also at the high school, Skylar Heller took 4th place in the painting division. Cindy Hintz, honorable mention in painting, and also Amber Hurst, honorable mention in collage category. So our students did well. Comparing our size to some of the larger schools, we had a number of students that placed and got some mention.
And I think too, just complimenting everybody. I mean, they sent in 30 pieces. That alone, they don't have to send in 30 pieces. They chose to based upon what they thought those pieces deserved being submitted. So I think that's cool as well. So it's not like everybody gets a little ribbon nowadays, but I think that's different. So when teachers are saying, hey, this is worthy of sending in, that's worthy of recognition too, so that's good.
Congratulations goes to Matt Schneider for taking 2nd team all conference at the Flowery Conference Math Meet on April 9th in Ambro. Scott mentioned the senior recognition awards night coming up May 7th. And also our FFA last Friday went to the Fox Valley Technical College career development events, and we had several students or student teams place in wildlife. We had a team qualify for state in agriculture mechanics. They missed qualifying by 2 points. In dairy cattle evaluation, they missed qualifying by 14. And also dairy products qualified for state as well. So I believe Mr. Kramer will take those 2 teams to state competition and see if they can do well there. Forensics meet is coming up this Friday. Matt Schneider is going for radio news reporting, Maggie Schneider for prose, Emily Ferguson prose, Nadia Holman for prose, Jasmine Mahler, Moments in History speech, and also Ella Muller for poetry. And also Badger Boy State and Badger Girl State were selected. We have 2 students going to Badger Boy State. Joe Hoganoff is one, as well as Cole Travis. And then for Badger Girl State will be Samantha Paulson and Grace Proust. And that'll happen in June.
All right, thank you, Bob. Okay, let's move down to Ryan.
Gentlemen have uploaded something earlier today, kind of giving you a report on the status of the budget through the first 3 quarters of the year. This is the 2nd time I've given the report. I gave it 3 months ago, so through the first 2 quarters, I'll give it again in July. Those numbers won't be final because the audit won't be completed yet. So just a couple notes. As of March 31st, based on the number of teacher days, the school year is 74% complete. Our fiscal year is 75% complete. We've only paid 14 of 24 teacher payrolls. So that's at 58%, and then the year-round staff have received 75% of their payrolls. So the biggest number there is the teachers. They end up, actually we accrue 6 total paychecks in June because they get paid in July and August for this current school year. At the bottom of the first page are Those two graphs will show the district has expended 61% of its general fund budget this year to date. Last year at this time, the district had spent 60.29% of the budget, so we're right there. Nothing stands out in terms of spending. On the second page, you'll see a breakdown of expenses by function, and then it also has the budget up there. So this is the format that you would have approved last fall. The top two items on there, the undifferentiated curriculum and the regular curriculum, those would be our teachers. Undifferentiated is K-6. Regular curriculum is grade 6 and up. And then the other ones that follow, business administration is custodial staff, business staff, buildings and ground staff, utilities are in there. School building administrators are school admin and secretaries. Central services would be your IT, software, and phone expenses. Vocational curriculum is ag, business ed, tech ed. General administration is the superintendent, any board fees, legal fees, and audit fees. Co-curricular is exactly that. Pupil services is director of instruction, pay and benefits, guidance, nursing, psychology. And then you have Phi-Ed. Insurance and the judgments would be workers' compensation, our general liabilities. Insurance, instructional staff is library and some payments we make to CISA. Other support services, those are actually our retirement payments. We have not made all those yet. A lot of them get made in June. So those will, that's why that is only at 35.59%. And then other special needs is our at-risk teacher. Purchase instructional services, you'll see nothing is really hitting there yet. That is our open enrollment out, as well as our voucher costs, and those actually get recorded in June once we get notice from the state. So if you look at the far right, the biggest numbers you'll see, at this time of year we should be between 65 and 66% of expenses spent. We're at 61%, which is in line with last year. The business administration is at 79%, and that's simply because the expenses that go in there are mostly salary and benefits and utilities for year-round staff. Everything else, like those top two lines, those are teacher pay, so that's why those are at around 60% at this point. And then the other big one in there would be like school improvements are also in that business administration one, so that's why that's around 79%. That's where we would code any sort of larger school building projects, and a lot of those get done in the summer. Below that is a breakdown of expenses by object codes. So at salaries, we're at 62% so far this year, benefits 58%. Towards the bottom, the insurance and judgments, we're at 75%. Again, that's kind of a fiscal year thing. We pay 12 months as we go. It's not split amongst teacher timelines. Below that is a look at where utilities are. At this point, we're at 76.63% of our budget, which is in line with having 9/12 of the year completed so far. We are trending about $9,000 ahead of last year in actual expenses. I looked at it closer. I have a closer spreadsheet that breaks it down by building. The heat in the high school has been up a little bit this year. But we do actually kind of still forecast a little bit of savings compared to the budget, with the hopes that in the springtime you don't need heat and air conditioning as
We'll
much.
see.
Yeah, it hasn't been the case
We're
yet.
plowing significantly today, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Next week, does everybody see the weather forecast?
Nice.
It's coming. 60s.
65 to 50.
One more note on the utilities, because if you look at 16-17 year to date, is only at 67%. That's simply because we just over budgeted last year. We over budgeted 286,000 in utilities, and this year we budgeted 262,000. So our budgeting is just more accurate this year, so far anyways.
It also just means it's tighter, you know, not as much leeway.
The special education fund, expenses today are up around $151,000. That's a 16% increase in expenses over the first 9 months compared to last year. However, we have mentioned in the past that the special education budget did experience a budget increase of 12.6% compared to last year. And of that $151,000 increase, $120,000 of it is special education payroll and benefit costs. Thus far, we've had $1,085,000 of total expenses. That is 58.9% of the Fund 27 budget. And at this time last year, we were at 57.1%. So we're right in line with where we had budgeted, similar to last year. The two graphs aren't quite as drastic as it makes it appear.
This is a good example of being a good researcher and making sure you're paying attention to details. Because if you just look at the right side graph that's in the report, you're like, boy, there's a big difference between 2018 and 2017. Well,
It's not
it's
even
actually
2%.
it's not even 2%. It's the way the graph kicked out the information.
So that's the special education budget. The revenues, as I had pointed out last time with this report, are state general aid and local property taxes make up 85% of our revenue. To this point, we've received roughly 64% of our general state aid allocation and 70% of our property tax revenues come in. For 2017-18 fiscal year, we received $6.3 million in general aid and $4.69 million in Fund 10 property tax revenues. To date, the district has received 62.53% of its budgeted revenues, which is in line to last year where we had received 61% through the end of March. So everything is still continuing to fall in line. The last page kind of points out some acuities in the budget. We're going to have to do budget revisions probably in the next month here, and we pointed these out in the past. There's a GMC Sierra truck that was not budgeted for, and then a Parkview room that had to be done for special ed needs. And then we purchased 3 buses for $271,500. There have been other expenses that have come with that. The LP tank is $8,286. That was for the concrete pad. And then the tank and the installation of it, which involves some electrical wiring, has been $16,520. So the total of the new buses with those side items is roughly $300,000 for the change. And then in the next month here, as we get, our budget is in a really good spot as far as having numbers in there that we're comfortable with. I'll just kind of go through and start looking at 17-18 budget to actual and see if anything else has been out of line and if we need to add any other budget revisions in there. But once those are known, we'll make those with DPI, put them in Skyward, and then just bring them to the board to let you know what those all are. So that summary part, everything looks in line as far as spending and revenue goes. Those budget revisions add up to roughly $325,000 in a budget deficit, which would end up coming out of fund balance. And that's about it. At the bottom of the recommendation, we're just going to continue to monitor revenues and expenses in the coming months, and if anything happens before the end of the year that would require another report similar to this, we would bring it to you.
You know, one of the things that's important too is before those buses were purchased, we did an audit of the fund balance, did an audit of the cash flow, and made sure everybody was comfortable with that. And then also brought it back to Travis and say, okay, now let's come up with a plan. So we're meeting with Travis this week, Thursday, to talk about bus routes and some tweaking in there for next year. And also we're going to start talking about, okay, where's the plan? So I just want everybody to know, when it came to our strategic planning conversation, big thumbs up. I've reached out to 2 different companies, got a response back from one of them today about starting to just learn about what it looks like and what their costs would be. Got at least 3 to 4 more of them we'll be reaching out to. But when we talk, we're talking about, okay, let's, like facilities. We met this morning, what's the priorities for the summer? Great. What was awesome is we went to last year's priorities that we weren't able to do and said, okay, let's lock some of those in. We did have some new learning throughout this experience. We're going to bring the summaries and findings from this morning to the B&G committee. So they're the ones who help us to approve the summer project. But in the meantime, I think looking at the summary of our budget, we have a good solid budget this year. That's a great way to build a budget for the 18-19 school year. Really important. But we did have the piece, like I'm always, when I hear like we're in a deficit of $325,000, get alarm to me personally. But we had a major discussion about that before those buses were approved, with a conversation saying, okay, we're gonna come up with a plan for a rotation cycle for those buses, and that's coming.
Well, as
So-
part of the budget revision, we'll get to the end of the year when auditors see it, or if somebody in public were to see it. If we do the budget revision, it's not gonna look like we're over budget, because we've known about it from the beginning of the year. It's just a formality to
Yeah.
do a revision.
Are we gonna be looking at a plan where we're paying for them up front?
That's what I need to see
Okay.
from Travis. That was the exact question, because right now, if we were to budget 50,000 a year, that would take care of it. Do we need to do that 50,000 now? Do we have, based upon this, do we have 16-month, window? What do we have? So that's the conversation that I need to have with him. Actually, the transportation committee needs to have that with him. So that'll be included with the B&G. So when we have our summer projects, we'll bring Travis in too, and we'll talk about the bus rotation and what's happening. So, okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep, Joe has, we're two heads, so we have two reports.
Could we please start with the buildings and grounds
You bet.
portion of my report? So we, in an effort to clean out our district storage facility, which is out in the old Gleason Real building, we ran an auction with Wisconsin Surplus Auction. If you could click that link. The auction has since closed, but if anybody wanted to, if you on the keyword, just type in Mayville. If anybody wanted to go on, you could look to see what the final sale prices were on all the items that were up for bid. There were a few bigger ticket items, a milk machine, a non-functioning freezer. But most of it was desks, chairs, filing cabinets, things of that nature. My quick math, if I didn't punch numbers wrong on my calculator before I came, the total sale was $2,950.76.
So when it says ended, it means that it did not sell?
There were a couple items that our teachers requested that we take off
Yeah.
of the auction because they wanted them, so we did that. And so those two items there specifically were removed from the auction. So folks were supposed to have until last Friday to pick items up. The vast majority of things have been picked up. There's a few items still remaining. Folks have made arrangements to come yet this week. That has opened up that storage facility and will allow us to move a lot of items out there that will go on the round 2 auction. So this ties into my report on the referendum work, but we will be removing items out of the locker room wing, particularly lockers, shelving units, things like that. Those items that we don't have use for anymore will likely be auctioned off, and I think we can, I think lockers will actually bring some money. There seems to be a demand for those things.
So one of the things, so like Ryan, so that's $2,950 in revenue that can offset a bus.
Yeah.
Can't
So
work, guys.
it was our first experience with running this auction, and we learned some things from it. It was a lot of work to put that together, to photograph all the items and put them in lots and get them all ready to go. So we've got a plan going forward to hopefully make that a more efficient process. I just want you to know that we did try to publicize this. We sent out, it was on our district website, I believe it went out through our district social media. We sent skyward messages out to all of our district families, emails to all of our staff. We emailed the Chamber of Commerce, I contacted the mayor, I contacted the local paper. So hopefully everybody in the area was aware this was going on and had an opportunity to bid on anything that they were interested
You
in.
said you were gonna come up with a more efficient way to look at it, and I always take a look at things. Is it costing more to actually sell this stuff, or is it for man hours, time, effort? Are we losing money in your mind due to efficiency?
Well, the other flip side you gotta remember is that anything that didn't sell would have had to go in a dumpster, and we would have paid to get rid of it.
Well, okay. That's
So in the end, yes, I think we came out ahead. Part of the problem was we had all this stuff in storage, so we had to pull it out, group it into like items, package it, photograph it, and then put it back. Whereas now, as we start to take things out of like our Phi-Ed wing, as we move it in, we'll photograph it, put it away. So it should just go a bit more smoothly. My next item to report on is over the spring break period, we replaced the flooring in the middle school special ed classroom, room 3205. That's a picture I took today of that new flooring in there. It's the same Tajima product that's going to go in the high school. That's actually the same, if you flip to the next, if you go back and flip to the next picture, it's actually the same pattern that was put into the middle school office. That picture kind of, the flash kind of overpowered that, but previously that room was partially carpeted with some really kind of poor carpeting, and it had some old vinyl tile in it. Special ed teachers said that there was a hygiene issue in there with you know, spilling and accidents that occur in there, and not being able to clean up that carpet real well. So we did this to improve that learning environment, and it certainly does look a lot better. And I've heard lots of feedback already from the teachers thanking us for putting that flooring in. Next item to report on is that you may or may not know that over the summer months we had all new paper towel dispensers put in the high school and at Parkview. We did not do the middle school at that time because we had old product in the old dispensers that we wanted to use up. So over spring break, as we approached spring break, we realized that we were running pretty low on that product and it was time to switch them out. So those are all updated in the middle school over the break. And as I mentioned in item 4, just kind of giving you a timeline of some things that have been happening. We originally had agreed to turn over the high school locker room wing to the construction company on May 1. They came back to us and asked if we could expedite that and give it to them a little bit sooner so that they could ensure that that space was completed by August 1 when the fall athletic seasons begin. So with some conversations with our Phi-Ed teachers and other stakeholders, we agreed that our students and staff will vacate that after this Friday, that we'll then have next week to remove all of the salvageable items out of that space, and then officially turn it over to the construction company next Friday afternoon, and work will begin in that space at 4 p.m. next Friday. That causes us to have to relocate a changing room, so room 100 at the high school will be turned into a makeshift changing room with a boys and girls side. Our athletic teams will use that, and to the extent that Phi-Ed chooses to dress for Phi-Ed classes going forward, they'll also be able to use that space. It is not meant to be a true locker room. There will not be lockers in there. Instead, students will need to bring their materials in, their clothes, their change clothes, and then take their things with them when they leave. Also in preparation, our coaches will be packing up all of their things that are in the locker room areas. We're renting a Connex box for long-term storage that is expected to be delivered this Wednesday. At that point, all these carts that the Mayville manufacturing group has been producing for us that are filled and ready to go can be put in there and put into long-term storage until next fall.
And some of those, I mean, the good news is that already in August, we'll be able to put them right back again.
Right.
Quick turnaround.
All right, so we can switch gears then to talk on the athletic director side of my role here. First of all, I wanted to inform you that I received a letter of resignation from Bob Struck, who has been our high school boys head soccer coach for the past year plus. He cited the fact that his day job, his work, he's taken on a number of real large projects that take up a lot of his time, and he just doesn't have as much time available to devote to the soccer program. So I want to publicly thank Bob for his service. He stepped in 2 years ago when we found ourselves in a tight spot and filled in, kind of finished out our season and then took over the program. Under his leadership, I'm not sure what impact he had, but I want to give him some credit. Our numbers in boys soccer grew in that time, 23 the previous year to 32 this past year. So he leaves the program, at least from the perspective of participation, in good shape. So now we're going to need to look for a new soccer head coach. The next item is our winter participation numbers. Previously, NUB would have been part of a group of NUB and some coaches. We'd get together. John, I think we haven't been doing that, but I thought I would bring you a little update on our participation numbers for our high school athletic teams. So I've got the 2017-18 column on the far right that shows the number of participants in each of our programs thus far. The total number of participants through the winter season was 236. That compares to 238 last year for those same sports. So we're running pretty consistently with the number of kids that are involved. Even as our high school enrollment has dropped, our numbers have stayed pretty consistent.